Hola, hola, amigas. Welcome to episode 12 of Modern Latina in Midlife. This is a big milestone for me. It was originally intended to be the last episode of my first season in this podcast. However, now that I'm in the swing of things, I'm really enjoying having these conversations. So I've decided to keep going without a break, at least not at this time. In addition to this change, there are some other things coming up that I'll be sharing later in this episode. If you listen to my last episode, episode 11 with Monica Lorraine, you will know that we talked about the four astrological transits that we go through from the ages of 37 to 50. These four transitions align perfectly with the big challenging events that have happened in my life. That's why I thought it was important to add the clip from Monica's interview to this intro. That was the very first thing you heard when you started playing this podcast episode. These are the events in my life that catapulted me into going within to do the work. At first, it looked like me searching for answers outside of me, finding out what was wrong, giving it a name, and then finding a book that had a solution to said quote unquote problem, or a therapist that sent me to a support group. And this only took me so far. It was great, but it only took me so far. However, what it did teach me was to start discerning what is for me and what is not for me in terms of my growth and the circles that were going to prove to be right for me. I believe I truly started awakening at this point and seeing beyond the 3D around age 44 or 45. Prior to that, I was often what I like to call now sleepwalking through life. I was checking off the boxes of going to college, getting my degree, getting the corporate job, getting married, buying the house, having the kids. I was just going down that list of this is what is expected of me. And once those were checked off and completed, I started encountering some really big challenges, starting with my first marriage. I had two major long-term relationships in my life, one of whom I married, and the other I did not marry, but we did move in together and blended our families. We had an 8-year relationship. Both were both became challenging and toxic. They didn't begin that way. I'm not going to get into the details of what each was like, but what I will share is that in the case of both of them, once I woke up and reflected as to what was happening in our relationships, I realized this was the same man. Both of these were the same man, different name, different look, different zodiac sign, but essentially it was the same man bringing up the same triggers in me. It was the same sort of habits and traits, if you will. In both cases, I knew in the depths of my soul that I needed to grow beyond what was happening. I took the time for therapy, for growth, for going within and doing the work. My thought, based on what I was reading and learning, was that as I focused on myself and my growth, that they would follow suit. That by me working on myself, I would make the relationship better. But I chose these two really well because I had some major work to do. And I tried. Um, I truly did try. I truly did begin the work, but they were unwilling to budge. So their glass ceiling of consciousness kept them in fear and locked in that space where they were at that point in their lives. In both cases, I felt that they were holding me back. They were holding me back from my own growth. I felt like literally like I was being pulled back, like I was trying to move forward and they were grabbing me by the arm and pulling me back. This is just a visual that I have vividly in my mind when I think about that point in my life uh, with my first husband. But then with that second relationship, it was like, whoa, hold on. Like, here we go again. Like that visual popped into my head again. And I just thought, wow, this is odd. This is really weird that I feel like I'm being pulled back again. One of these men actually told me that I was better, that I thought I was better than everyone because I was doing this work. And I can honestly say that this was further from the truth. It is because I knew I was so flawed that I wanted to become a better version of myself. I had done enough growing at this point to know that he was simply projecting his own insecurities on me. I had done enough inner child work at this point to see the damage and lonely child inside of him. And I felt compassion. And he was also unwilling to allow me to grow without projecting on me. And it just became extremely toxic. So, in both of these cases, there came a point where I had to make a tough decision. But you know what is interesting? That even though both of these were very tough and painful decisions, when the moment came to make that move, it was the easiest, most aligned, and guided move I could make. Everything fell into place perfectly. That's not to say that the months and the years to follow weren't difficult, because they really were. I had a lot of anger and resentment for a very long time, especially when I divorced my husband. I was 35 and we had been married for 10 years and had two healthy, lovely sons. I was incredibly heartbroken and I had never felt pain quite like that before. And I fell into a depression. I thought I had thought for a long time prior to leaving that I would just stay for the sake of the kids because that's what the previous generations did, I thought. But I just know that I could not bear living with myself like that. I also wanted to set an example for my sons. I wanted to show them that they could stand up for themselves as well if they felt they were being disrespected or if they felt they were being, in a toxic relationship or they weren't allowed to do their personal growth without, getting this pullback from their partner. I wanted to show them that they could, and should stand up for themselves. And I also wanted them to know that women are not just going to be their doormats. I wanted to be an example of a strong woman that was going to demand respect. Essentially, I would not have been able to reach my full potential in this lifetime if I had stayed in either of these relationships. My growth was happening at a much more rapid rate than theirs. I know that in the case of my ex husband, it was just a couple years after our divorce. I feel that he started his own healing journey, his own journey of reflection. And I'm very grateful for that because he is the father of my kids, and I want them to be able to see, what reflecting on your actions looks like, and that it's okay to make mistakes so long as we're learning from them, and that introspection is important, and is growth. My second relationship was very different from that. I drove away from that relationship from one day to the next with a truckload of furniture, no partner, no home, no retirement or career. I had been a stay at home mom for 5 years at that point, and my son needed help getting back to health. All I could think of driving away at that moment was, how did I get here? Here I was at the age of, gosh, 45, 46. How did I get here? I had a lot of resentment towards this man. I often saw myself as the victim, and I was very upset at everyone who allowed me to walk into that relationship knowing full well the type of man that he was without saying a word to me. My thought was, if it's just me, okay, fine. I'll get up, dust myself off, and move on. But I brought my children into this relationship, and his son as well was involved. So with children involved, I just feel it's different, and that was just my opinion. And you know what? That's their journey. That's their journey. I have to focus on my own. So I took the time to reflect on what had transpired. I took ownership of what was mine, the things that I did to contribute, and the red flags that I chose to ignore. I took ownership of my choices and the things that I had manifested into my life. I am now 51, and my Chiron return happened in March of 2022. And this goes back to, of course, episode 11, if you listened to that, about our astrology transitions that we go through in midlife. Our Chiron return is when we reflect back on the last 10 to 13 years of learning, crying, evolving, and powering through. It's the time to evaluate how much strength we have gained, where we have done the most healing, and how we can contribute, or should I say, how we can continue to expand, learn, and evolve. Over the last 5 years, I've been doing a lot of deep work and healing, and the healing and growth will continue. There is never a point when we reach a stopping point, in my opinion. There is always more growth to be done, something new to learn about ourselves and expand. And more specifically, over the last 3 years, I've been working on intentionally manifesting the life that I desire. I've been using a number of different manifestation techniques, which I'll cover in another episode. It's been fun, and I'd love to share those with you. And while I've been working on intentionally manifesting, the last 3 years have been more easeful and peaceful and in flow. When I look around at where I now live, take inventory of my day to day life, reflect on the relationship that I have attracted, evaluate the business I have built, and the networks of friends and colleagues I've created, I can truly say I am the most fulfilled and happy that I have ever been. I am in this place of just radical authenticity, of just really owning my gifts and honing them. At this age of 51, after our fourth midlife transition, our Chiron return, is also the point when we might even be called to help others. According to the conversation that I had with Monica Lorraine, my dear friend and astrologer, again, who joined me in episode 11. If you haven't listened to it, I highly encourage you to. And for me, this is exactly what's happening. Earlier this year, it's now September 2023 at the time of this recording. So back in like March or April of 2023, I received a message from my spirit guide or my higher soul. It was a download or a voice that said, "You are meant for more." And I knew in that moment it was time to step up and do something different, be of service to others, to that woman, that former version of myself, someone who is where I used to be anywhere in the last 10 to 13 years. And from there, it has been one aligned step after another. I joined a program and I'm in the process of obtaining my life coaching certification. In fact, it concludes next week. Through the summer, I worked with pro bono clients who so kindly stepped up to allow me to practice with them and start developing my skills. I'm incredibly excited for this next chapter. And I'm often told you're so strong, you're so powerful, and you're so inspiring, but I don't think that this is exclusive to me. I think you are strong and you are powerful. And trust me, you never know who you are inspiring, who's watching and paying attention. So, I want to share with you the 7 most transformational practices that I did to start my healing journey and start creating my best midlife chapter and living my midlife with intention and by design and not by default and by making choices that are expected of me. So here we go. Grab a pen if you want to jot down what some of these modalities might be, or maybe just come back and re-listen to any of this if you want to jot these down at a later time. Number one was meditation. I started working with a client, a holistic therapist that had some amazing guided meditations. That's how I started. She had this pretty large collection of guided meditations, anywhere from 1 minute to 20 minutes long, covering different areas from self love to cutting energetic cords, which I didn't even know what that was at the time, and, breaking limiting beliefs. I got hooked. From there, I participated in Deepak Chopra's 30-day meditation challenge. This was about 45 minutes daily of transcendental meditation accompanied by journaling. And then I found the Insight Timer app, and I've been using it ever since. This app has so many different types of meditations for just about anything you can think of. I use a lot of the guided sleep meditations to help me sleep, and it really has been truly amazing. So that's a great place to start if you haven't yet started a meditation practice. I would highly suggest you download the app. It's free and start looking through it and see what calls to you. This leads me to number 2, which is journaling. I started with journaling prompts also from that same client with the guided meditations, which enabled me to start digging deep into my limiting beliefs and to uncover what needed healing within me. It was really incredibly powerful. Journaling can be very powerful when you have a big question or stress in your life that you need help with. Putting it in writing helps you take it off your mind, and it unlocks something in your subconscious that helps you download answers to those very questions. Those little hints and ideas that come through it through your journaling are is your intuition talking to you. So I would start with some journaling prompts. Just you can Google and find some online, or if this is something that interests you at a later date, I will be doing a journaling episode and I be sure to link some journaling prompts that you can download. So I've got that written down for a future episode for sure. And number 3 is podcasts. Podcasts have been a huge part of my growth since 2015 when I helped one of my first clients launch her own podcast. I've been producing podcasts for others ever since, and I absolutely love helping women amplify their voices and reach more people with their own message and medicine through this absolutely wonderful medium. I've listened to all types of podcasts over the years, but the one that led me to my most growth in the beginning was The Adult Chair with Michelle Chalfant, who is also the same client that led me to guided meditations and journaling. And she was my client at that point when I started listening to her podcast. So find a podcast that supports where you are at this point in your life. And when you feel you have outgrown it, find another one or find one that works on a different area of your life. To follow Michelle, you can look for her podcast at The Adult Chair. Actually, it's just The Adult Chair. You can find it on Apple or Spotify, or you can follow her on Instagram at The Michelle Chalfant. And I'll link her to the show notes as well. Number 4 was energy work. I met a host of a podcast that I used to follow, Linda Garcia of Let There Be Loose podcast. She has become a very dear friend of mine. This podcast is no longer running current episodes, but you could still find her old episodes on your favorite podcast player. Through her, I learned about the power of energy healing and how important maintaining good energy hygiene is for our physical, mental, and emotional well being. I have a huge story to share about this modality and how and why I got started with energy healing, but I don't have permission at this time to share that story publicly. If that ever does become something that I can do, I will be sure to share that story because it really is powerful. What I will share at this time is that when Linda would perform energy healings, they had a profound effect. So I decided to become certified in energy healing myself. So I do pranic healing to be specific. And I did the entry level, the advanced pranic healing level, and I also um, did the training in pranic psychotherapy healing. It really has been truly life changing for me. So whether that looks like chronic healing or Reiki or some other modality, I do think it's important that we try to keep our energy hygiene in tip top shape. And this can mean that a practitioner or a healer helps you with it. And there are other forms of keeping your energy clean through things that you can do yourself. And again, this is another great podcast episode idea for a future date that I will be sure to record and share with you. Number 5 was women's healing retreats and workshops. This was a range of wellness days and retreats put on primarily by Latinas, where I had the opportunity to try different modalities from yoga and meditation to moon ceremonies, sound baths, and breath work. These spaces allowed me to work on myself and also to find my people. I have made some amazing friends through these spaces that I still maintain beautiful friendships with today, which leads me to talk about breath work specifically. Breath work has created such amazing transformation for me. During breathwork practice, I have been able to receive messages and answers to steps I needed to take for my own healing and growth. I know this sounds way woo woo for many, but well, that's just who I am. I like to use a combination of practical and woo woo. In my first breathwork workshop with Ana Lilia, who I will link in the show notes, I was able to connect with both my grandmothers, my dad, and his sister, my aunt. They all had a message to deliver. This was mid 2019. And by the first week of January 2020, I had taken their advice. And it was so beautifully aligned. The message they had for me is that I needed to change my last name back from my married last name to my maiden last name, Flores. I will never again leave my birth name behind. This is what my last name will be forever from now on. It is me. At the time, I thought I had kept the last name, my married last name from my first husband for the sake of my boys. I thought that it mattered to them, but really they really didn't care. But getting back to my maiden name, it was so empowering to take my maiden last name back. The energy was just different. Ana Lilia regularly runs breathwork workshops, usually on the full moon or the new moon, which, by the way, today is the new moon at the time of this recording. And she is running a moon ceremony. And she just runs these amazing retreats, which I've had, and workshops, which I have had the privilege of participating in one of her all day workshops. Actually, I think it was a 3 day, 2 or 3 day workshop a couple of years ago, and I really look forward to participating in a live retreat with her one day. So you can follow her Instagram at underscore Ana underscore Lilia, and I will link her in the show notes as well. And this leads me to number 7, which is coaching. Coaching has helped me overcome limiting beliefs and do ancestral work that have helped me launch this podcast almost a year ago and launch my own coaching business. The power of coaching has been so powerful for me. I am feeling called to help other women going through their own midlife transitions. I've been there and I know I'm equipped to guide women who are stuck in their midlife transitions. If any of these practices resonate with you, I encourage you to go look into them. Find a practitioner or a workshop, some journaling prompts, or a coach who will help you through your transitions and your growth and your healing. One thing I know for sure, healing doesn't happen alone and it is not linear. You are the captain and in full control of taking the next step. But we need help diving deep if we've never done this type of work before. And there is also a sense of relief to know that you don't have to do this alone. So, in the last 3 to 4 months, as I've worked through my coaching certification, I've worked on my niche, deciding who is that person that I'm going to help and developed what my initial coaching program is going to look like. If you've been following me on social media at Modern Latina in Midlife, you most likely already have a pretty good idea of what that is. I just launched my new coaching website, rebranded the podcast cover, and my social media. The podcast is still called Modern Latina in Midlife because that's who I am. And I will continue to explore all these topics about the changes that we go through in this stage of midlife. I have a few fun guests lined up to come on the podcast: a divorce estate attorney, a hormone specialist, a sexologist, an intuitive advisor. I'm just really loving the combination of practical advice and also throwing in some woo woo in there because that's just who I am. If you feel like you have something to contribute to our conversations about midlife, even if it's just to discuss like what the heck is happening, please reach out to me either via DM at Instagram or go to my new website, sonia-flores.com, and reach out there via the contact form. And now I'm also ready to announce that I'm building a program called Midlife Reawakening to help women who are feeling stuck, monotonous, or bored to rediscover their true purpose and spark and start living their midlife with intention. I help you peel back all the layers and roles that society has placed on you so that you can find your authenticity, I help you find that spark that was once shut down so many years ago with all of those roles and expectations that everybody else put on you. This program is going to include everything I learned and applied in the last 12 to 15 years in my own midlife transitions, including some of these practices that I just went over, so that it doesn't have to take you 15 years to manifest a midlife with purpose and intention and create your best chapter yet. The Midlife Reawakening 90-day coaching program will launch in January, but I am looking for a few, probably 5 to 7, highly committed women in midlife who are willing to participate in a case study and provide feedback while I solidify the content for my program. In exchange for your help, you will receive 25% off the program, all the tools, the worksheets, the mindset work, manifestation techniques, energy work, and weekly one on one coaching with me. Not sure if this is for you? Well, do any of the following statements resonate? I hit midlife. Now what? I feel stuck, monotonous, and bored in my existing reality. I'm living a life by default that doesn't feel true to me. I fear living in my existing reality forever. This isn't where I envision I would be at this age. If the answer is yes, this may be your sign. Now, for a little inspiration from a client who participated in my midsummer reactivation 4-week coaching program this summer, this is what she had to share about our time together. Our time together was so transformational, it's actually hard to believe the impact just 4 weeks made when working with Sonia. My goal for the time we had together was simply to ease the transition and moving into a new career and life space because I was feeling really ungrounded and anxious about making some changes and big decisions. Sonia has a very refined, clean, tranquil energy that emits from her in every interaction. She provided for me so many resources and support that led to some serious self discovery. I feel like a butterfly coming out of a cocoon, so much more connected to my own inner guidance and intuition, and I attribute that to my work with Sonia. When we met, I was anxious, on an emotional roller coaster, and in victim mentality. After just 4 sessions, I feel so much more in my feminine energy, more clear, grounded, and self secured. My absolute favorite part of working with Sonia is her voice and perspective. She is really here for us midlife women. Zero judgment and such a soft, supportive place to hold space and transmute the energy into empowerment. She has an earth angel vibe that I find very safe for my nervous system. But she does all of this in a very intentional, accountable way that doesn't feel intrusive or codependent. She's an energy guardian. Wow. Every time I read this, I get goosebumps. Such an honor working with her and the other women who participated in my coaching program this summer. If this interests you, DM me the word midlife on Instagram at Modern Latina in Midlife or send me a message to my website. I will link both in the show notes for easy access. I'll send you all the details and we can figure it out from there. If you know of another woman in midlife who might be able to benefit from something like this, please share this podcast episode with them or send them to my Instagram profile. I'm very much looking forward to connecting with those who are called to create their best chapter yet in midlife. Hasta la próxima.